We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. Aristotle. Imagine yourself at a funeral of a loved one. Picture the flowers, the casket, your friends and family. When you walk up to the casket, to your surprise, you see your own face and body. This is actually your funeral. Now sit down on one of the benches. What are the people closest to you saying about you? Do you like what they have to say, or is there anything you wish you would have done differently? Contemplate deeply on how you would like to be remembered in the end, and use that as a roadmap for how you act for the rest of your life. For example, I would be happy if people described me as present, disciplined, and impactful. Is what I'm doing today living up to that? You decide. This is Ditac Stan presenting the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. Habit number 1. Be proactive. One day naked in a concentration camp, Viktor Frankl became aware of what he named, quote, the last of human freedoms. He realized that although his captors could control his entire environment and do what they wanted to his body, they could not control his response. How this was going to affect him was still his own decision that no one could take away from him. Quote, between stimulus and response, man has the freedom to choose. Everything that affects us in life is within our circle of concerns. These are things like the economy, war, weather, our health, etc. Upon examining our circle of concern, we can see that some of those things are within our control, like eating healthy, reading, improving skills, and so on. We call that our circle of influence. Habit number 1, be proactive, invites us to invest all our energy and efforts towards our circle of influence. Proactive people work on what they can control and take responsibility for the outcomes. The more you work on your circle of influence, the more it grows. Reactive people, on the other hand, focus on things outside of their control and consistently blame circumstances for their misfortune. Adapting this behavior will cause your circle of influence to shrink instead. Imagine yourself in Viktor Frankl's shoes and still choosing to focus on your circle of influence. This should put your own problems into perspective. After all, you have no idea to the degree of which your circle of influence can be extended if you truly put your best proactive foot forward at all times. I encountered a profound illustration of this concept in recent years. A while back, I got sick and suffered a compromised health for a long period of time. During the first year or so, I did a lot of complaining and felt sorry for myself, i.e. focused on my circle of concerns. But upon examining my circle of influence instead, I started reading a lot of health books. At around book 15, I stumbled into some advice that improved my health remarkably overnight. I could not imagine that was within my circle of influence. But instead of focusing on the issue when it was only in my circle of concerns, the circle of influence grew until it covered the problem. Habit number 2. Begin with the end in mind. There is no real excellence in all this world which can be separated from right living. David Starr Jordan. After you've completed the visualization exercise from the intro, it is time to write the script for your life. This script is called a mission statement. The point of a mission statement is to avoid getting caught in activity traps and waste away your life on things you don't truly value. All too often, people spend decades climbing the ladder of so-called success, just to find out it's leaning against the wrong wall. Here is what a mission statement might look like. Now it is time to write your own, and make sure the time you spend is aligned with your life mission. This will make the next habit a lot easier. Habit number 3. Put first things first. Every action you take in life can be put into one out of 4 categories. Urgent and important, not urgent but important, urgent but not important, and not urgent nor important. In the first quadrant are crises, things that need our attention now, like pressing problems and deadlines. In the second quadrant lies important but not urgent activities, such as educating ourselves, building relationships, planning, creating, etc. In quadrant 3 are things like unnecessary emails and phone calls, some meetings, and popular activities that you feel socially pressured to attend to. In the last quadrant are things like working to look busy, time traps such as scrolling your phone, or any other purely pleasant activities. Habit number 3, put first things first, is all about maximizing your time spent in quadrant 2, not urgent but important. This is where we become more effective over time. To get there, we need to steal time from quadrant 3 and 4. To move from quadrant 3, one must learn the ability to say no to unimportant things. The best way to do this is to have your mission statement ready at all times. If the activity doesn't fit the list, politely say no to it. Moving from quadrant 4 to 2 is all about discipline. Figure out one thing in your life that would have a positive long-term impact and switch it for your next Netflix session. It could be anything from reading a book to having a date night with your spouse. Lastly, you won't be able to take time from quadrant 1 immediately. After a while though, as your effectiveness increases over time, it will shrink automatically as you will act more proactively. Habit number 4. Think win-win. One day a poor farmer discovers in the nest of his pet goose a glittering golden egg. Although suspicious, he takes the egg to be appraised. To his surprise, it turns out to be pure gold. Wow, he can't believe how fortunate he is. He becomes even more baffled when the next day the experience is repeated. Day after day, this continues and the farmer becomes incredibly wealthy. But as his wealth increases, he becomes impatient and greedy. Concluding that the eggs must be inside the goose, he kills it and cuts it open. But as he opens it, he sees that it is empty. He has now killed the goose that produced the golden eggs. Most people view effectiveness as how many golden eggs they can produce. They forget about nurturing the goose altogether. True effectiveness lies in the right balance of production, golden eggs, and production capacity, the goose. The next habits are all about interdependent relationships, where this concept becomes the core. Habit number 4, think win-win, is all about keeping the goose in mind. Any deal or contract with someone will always be losing for both parties down the line if both aren't winning. I myself messed up here recently. I had fairly cheap pricing for the animations of my videos, which I thought was a great deal, golden eggs. But as time went on, I noticed my videos started slipping down the priority list. It turned out my pricing was not long-term sustainable for my animator. I was killing the goose. Habit number 5. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. Say that you found yourself lost in Chicago. You have a map in your pocket, but it has a printing error. Although it says Chicago, it is actually a map of Detroit. Now what do? You could try to adopt a positive attitude or move faster, but nothing will take you to the right place. The only thing you need is an accurate map. Now, we all walk around with many maps of what reality looks like in our heads, or so-called paradigms. These are lenses we have adopted from somewhere that interprets how we see the world. We might have very different views on money, education, or relationships that was inherited to us through social constructs such as school and family. Habit number 5, seek first to understand, then to be understood, emphasizes that we first need to listen and understand how the person we are interacting with sees the world, before creating win-win relationships is possible. Most people in their interactions are very quick to prescribe solutions to problems they don't yet understand, and read their own autobiographies into other people's lives. I know exactly how you feel. No, you don't. I went through the exact same thing. No, you didn't. Not in the way the other person interpreted the experience from their paradigms at least. Everyone loves to be heard. If you can listen in a truly empathic way without any manipulative intentions, you have the foundation for effective relationships. Habit number 6. Synergize. 1 + 1 equals hopefully more than 2. Every truly effective relationship focuses on synergy, i.e. the sum is greater than its parts. The key for synergy is to value differences between people. These differences make it possible for everyone to focus on their strengths and cover up for each other's weaknesses. To foster synergy, it is important to set up situations where cooperation is incentivized. One CEO was complaining about how his salespeople didn't cooperate enough. He gave them a lot of workshops on cooperation and synergy, but nothing worked. Maybe it was because he also had a competition where the one with the most sales won a trip to Bermuda. Habit number 7. Sharpen the saw. A man was working relentlessly to saw down a tree. After a few hours, his neighbor comes up to him and asks, "Why don't you take a break to sharpen the saw?" The sawing man replies, "I don't have time to sharpen the saw. I'm too busy sawing." Habit number 7, sharpen the saw, is about renewing yourself. There are 4 different dimensions of renewal: physical, mental, spiritual, and social/emotional. The physical dimension is about the body, eating well, taking proper time to relax, and doing some form of exercise. The mental dimension is about educating yourself. Even after school, you must keep studying to stay sharp through books or educational programs. The spiritual dimension is about your center, connecting with your value system and principles. This is done through prayer or meditation or spending time in nature. Stephen recommends that you spend at least an hour a day in these 3 dimensions. It is perhaps the easiest way to get going as of today to become highly effective. The social/emotional dimension is about nurturing the amazing relationships you've built through habit 4 and 5. That was it for the 7 habits of highly effective people by Stephen Covey. If you like this video, I think you will also enjoy this video, where I summarize the power of habit. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and I'll see you next time.